In my past life, for the sake of Elias G's ambitions, I helped him climb to a revered high position. Yet he said being my child, raised fiancé stripped him of all dignity, and he resented me for an entire lifetime. In this life, after Elias G was reborn, he swapped me out when I was less than 2 days old. He let a fake young lady take my identity and become the wife he had carefully handpicked. I was abandoned at the orphanage gate, lucky enough to be found and doted on by an old general as I grew up. When we met again, he was reduced to living worse than a stray dog as the fake young ladies kept fiancé, and I had become a spirited young professor on campus. Elias G knelt down begging me to save him, but I merely tilted my head, innocent yet cruel as I replied, "You are not worthy." I woke up in the hospital nursery. Someone gently slipped the identity wristband off my tiny wrist. I opened my eyes and looked over. It was my child, raised fiancé, Elias G. His face was grave and solemn. He did not relax into a faint smile until he fastened the wristband perfectly onto another baby girl's wrist. "This is the wife I chose with my own hands." Before dawn broke fully, he smuggled me out of the hospital. Inside a crude bamboo basket, 6-year-old him stumbled unsteadily. While carrying me, he walked for an unknown length of time. Then his footsteps halted abruptly. Elias G dumped me at the back gate of the orphanage. He could not wait to leave. Yet tormented by pangs of conscience, he turned back. Elias G bent down. He stroked my warm cheek, his voice trembling. "Do not hate me for being ungrateful. If you must blame someone, blame yourself for being far too kind to me in our past life. No matter what achievements I made as your kept fiancé, all the credit belonged to you. But I'm also a man. I crave to excel, and I deserve my own dignity. Elias G steeled his heart and pulled away the cloth that had muffled my cries. "In this life I refuse to be held back by you ever again." He ran away as fast as he could, afraid he would regret his choice, and terrified of being caught for abandoning an infant. It was the height of July, sweltering with summer heat. Wrapped tightly in a thick swaddle, however, I felt icy cold, as if plunged into freezing depths. The G family had a problematic political background. They were looked down upon in that era and lived in dire poverty. After Mr. and Mrs. G passed away, relatives passed Elias G around like trash. No one was willing to raise him. He wandered the streets as a beggar for half a year before meeting my parents, who had just moved into the neighborhood. My family, the Zoos, were of Dai-ethnic descent. We had always followed the matriarchal custom of women marrying men into the bride's family. Seeing that Elias G had no one to rely on, my family took him in, to be raised as my child. Raised fiancé. I treated Elias G exceptionally well. Not once did I ever shout at him, let alone lay a hand on him, or quarrel with him. I made sure he had enough to eat and warm clothes to wear. I even paid for his schooling all the way through university. Relatives often said Elias G was lame, and I was his crutch. I ought not spoil him too much. Otherwise, once he could stand on his own 2 feet, he would abandon me without a second thought. But I ignored their warnings. I naively believed that my kindness toward him was enough. He would never find anyone who treated him half as well, and he would never leave me. Later, Elias G stayed on at the university as a research fellow. Yet due to his problematic family background, no one was willing to cooperate with him on research projects. I gave up my own favorite research topic and joined his project instead. I accompanied and supported him every step of the way until Elias G became the highly respected Professor G. As years wore on and old age came, Elias G lay bedridden in his final days. Free from all pretense at last, his eyes clear and sharp, he roughly pushed away my supporting hand and accused me bitterly, "Mabel, Shu, I would rather have spent my entire life begging on the streets than be your kept fiancé ever again. At the very least, I would have retained my self-respect. The pain pierced my heart like thousands of sharp blades. I devoted my entire life to him, losing myself completely in the process. Yet in the end, in Elias G's heart, there was not even a single word of thanks for me. A devoted wife helps her husband reach lofty heights. Once successful, he abandons the one who stood by him. With power in hand, he tramples on his wife's grave to welcome a new lover. Elias G., your heart is truly cold and ruthless. Overwhelmed by grief, I let out a whimper. Yet my infant body was far too weak. Even the chirping summer cicadas were louder than my feeble cries. The back gate of the orphanage was rarely visited by anyone. Leaving me here was no different from sentencing me to death. In our past life, Elias G. had smiled through tears, vowing never to betray me. But in this life, the moment he was reborn, he wasted no time abandoning me. He personally chose a new wife and stole my life away. I burned with hatred. I drowned in regret. My consciousness slowly faded into drowsiness. Hearing human voices, I struggled to make even the faintest sound in my throat. But I could not. Even the rustle of a broom sweeping the yard drowned out my fragile cries. I sank into despair. I gave up completely, letting myself slip into darkness. I knew not how much time passed until the sharp screech of car brakes jolted me awake. The driver shouted loudly, "General, there's a baby here." I heard hurried footsteps as someone got out of the car to check on me. An elderly hand gently brushed my cheek, carrying a reassuring warmth. "Director, could you prepare some rice paste? This child cannot even cry properly. If she does not eat soon, she will starve to death." The orphanage director agreed at once. Spoon by spoon, warm rice paste touched my lips, breathing life back into me. The old general held me in his arms, standing beneath the leaking eaves and murmuring soft comforts. He looked down at me, his eyes turning red. My own daughter was just this small when she was born. We were poor back then. Every coin went to the war effort. My daughter never even had proper rice paste to drink. When life finally got better, she died on the battlefield and never came home. You may not know it, but my daughter enlisted to fight. She was so brave in battle. The old general could speak no further. Sobs choked off his unfinished words. He made up his mind firmly. I will adopt this child and raise her as my own. My daughter passed away on this very day, and this child arrived today. Let her be a keepsake for me. Before leaving, the old general donated most of his life savings to the orphanage. The leaking eaves, moldy rice paste, and thin swaddling clothes of the orphanage could all be replaced now. The old general pressed his forehead gently against mine and smiled. "Little one, from now on, you will call me Grandpa." The car headed for the railway station, traveling north all the way. I settled down far away in Beijing with Grandpa. It was just Grandpa and I in our home. Grandma had passed away long ago. His only daughter had secretly enlisted without telling him, and perished in the frozen northern battlefield. Grandpa adopted me when he went to bring his daughter's remains home for burial. He was a rough-hewn general who had crawled out of mountains of corpses and blood. He had never learned many characters. He specially invited the retired Chief of Staff Joe from the neighboring compound to name me. Old song, how about naming the little girl Celeste? Celeste. Celeste is perfect. Celeste song, that shall be our girl's name. Grandpa held me and grinned foolishly. He did not understand the profound meaning behind the name, only recognizing the two simple characters, pure and joy. Pure happiness. Grandpa liked it, and so did I. Years slipped by in the blink of an eye. Grandfather and granddaughter relied on each other as we grew and aged together. After coming of age, I never spoke of my past in that small southern city. Grandpa raised me. No matter what happened, I would stay by his side, to accompany him always. I graduated early with my doctorate and stayed on at the university, becoming the youngest professor in the school's history. Grandpa boasted about me to everyone he met, proud that I brought honor to our family. Later, during freshman enrollment, I stood at the university gate guiding new students as countless young faces streamed in. I lifted my gaze and met a familiar pair of eyes. Elias G. He looked much thinner, carrying large bags and suitcases as he walked forward. The moment he saw me, stormy waves seemed to crash in his eyes. He froze completely. He only snapped out of his daze when the young girl beside him tugged his arm impatiently. The young girl walked straight toward me and smiled politely. "Senior, is this the way to the mathematics department? I'm Eleanor Sue, a freshman in mathematics here to register with my counselor. This is my family member, also a freshman majoring in literature, Elias G. It was then that the memory suddenly flooded back to me. I knew this girl from my past life. So she was the wife Elias G. had carefully handpicked to take my place. I let out a quiet, bitter smile, thinking what an absurd farce fate truly was. You may register here with me. I am not a senior student. Strictly speaking, you should address me as professor. What? Both of them exclaimed in unison, utterly stunned. Hearing their reaction, Teacher Zhang from the literature department leaned over to explain. Do not be shocked. Almost every freshman who comes to register with Professor Song reacts exactly like this. Let me introduce you. This is Celeste Song, our university's youngest professor. She is beautiful, gentle, and very easy to get along with. She rarely takes on new students this year. You two are very fortunate. The wind swept across the plane tree boulevard, lifting the hem of my white long dress. I smiled gently, behaving like any ordinary professor, helping them finish registration and assign dormitories. I waved goodbye and watched them leave, polite yet distant. In my past life, this girl had been called Nora Zhao. She was the daughter of the neighboring Zhao family. Her mother died in difficult childbirth, leaving Nora Zhao orphaned just days after being born. On the late widow's request, my family kept her inheritance funds safe and looked after her occasionally until she came of age. All expenses covered by her legacy. We were the same age, yet our personalities were worlds apart. Nora Zhao was warm, outgoing, worldly, and sophisticated, with the free-spirited and positive nature of an independent woman. Having both lost their parents, she and Elias G. had much in common, and could talk endlessly together. Occasionally I felt uncomfortable seeing them grow overly intimate. But Elias G. would always say, "You grew up in a happy family. How could you possibly understand the pain in an orphan's heart, forced to live as a kept fiancé?" Nora Zhao and I share the same fate. We merely comfort each other in our loneliness. He spoke with such pitiful vulnerability. I only felt sorry for him and let things be. Looking back now, this must have been why he chose to let Nora Zhao steal my life. In Elias G's world, only by being with Nora Zhao could he salvage a shred of his lost dignity. But none of it mattered to me anymore. In this life I am no longer Mabel Su, but Celeste Song. She is no longer Nora Zhao, but Eleanor Su. The dignity Elias G craves so badly, I have already returned to him with my own hands. To pretend we are strangers is already the most merciful ending I could grant him. Yet I never expected Elias G to come looking for me on his own. As evening fell, I locked my office door and headed for the campus cafeteria for dinner. Around the corner, Elias G had been waiting for me for a long time. "Professor Song?" he called out softly. I paused slightly, nodded politely and replied, "Hello." Then I walked straight past him without a single glance sideways. He froze on the spot. It was as if he finally realized that in this life, I truly did not know him anymore. Unwilling to accept it, he hurried after me and blocked my path. "Professor Song, wait." I stopped and looked at him with a hint of suspicion in my eyes. "Is there something you need?" Elias G's breath came in quick gasps. "Professor Song, I have a friend who looks exactly like you."
"Do you?"
"Know Mabel Su? Or are you interested in finance? Are you conducting any research related to finance? Would you like to collaborate with me on a finance research project?" I knew it all too well. Elias G was testing me. Everything he mentioned were the things I had accompanied him to do in our past life. I had no idea why Elias G had chosen literature in this life when he was clearly passionate about finance. But having been reborn once more, I had no desire to acknowledge him at all. I frowned, displeased by his presumptuous behavior. "Mabel Su? I have no idea who that is. Furthermore, my doctoral research is in computer science. I have no involvement with finance-related topics. If you are looking for a supervisor to guide your research projects, you should first get into our university's postgraduate program. Focus on your undergraduate studies first. Young man, do not aim too high beyond your reach." I put on the proper demeanor of a professor. After offering him a few words of advice, I turned and left. Elias G stood rooted to the ground, caught completely off guard. I knew exactly what he was thinking. He hoped to recognize me again, to put on a hypocritical act, to climb onto my shoulders once more and let me help him reach lofty heights. Blinded by love in the past, I had failed to see the desire and ambition hidden in his eyes. Now that I was awake and clear-minded, he only filled me with disgust. What I could not understand was that he already had Eleanor Sue, the one he had always longed for. Why did he still insist on pestering me? Soon enough, the romantic gossip spreading around campus gave me the answer. Have you guys heard? A literature department student named Elias G knelt down to his wife in public today, just to apply for a department transfer and get his tuition fees covered. My pen paused for a split second. I looked up from my textbook and pricked up my ears, listening to the idle chatter of my classmates during the break. The girl sitting in the front row spoke animatedly. Elias G is Eleanor Sue's kept fiancé. He probably has no standing in their household. He only chose literature because Eleanor Sue insisted on it, claiming poetry and prose could cultivate one's temperament. Now that he's in university, Elias G might have changed his mind, but Eleanor Sue refuses to let him switch majors. Her words trailed off abruptly, because the two people involved had walked into the classroom. Eleanor Sue entered with Elias G following beside her. The noisy classroom fell silent in an instant, every pair of eyes turning to stare at them. A bright red handprint marked Elias G's cheek. He hung his head even lower. The bell rang and I stood up to start my lecture. Even though I deliberately avoided his gaze, I could still feel his burning stare fixed firmly on me. When class ended, Elias G shot me a pleading look, begging for help. I turned my head aside, pretending to see nothing. Growing flustered and angry, he stepped forward to speak to me directly. Professor, could you please help me? Eleanor Sue treats me terribly. Before he could finish speaking, Eleanor Sue walked over. She kicked Elias G hard on the calf and snapped at him irritably. What nonsense are you talking to Professor Song? Professor, we're an old married couple just messing around. Please don't take it seriously. I feigned complete ignorance and instead smiled to advise Elias G gently. It is already no easy feat for your wife to support your university education. You ought to be more understanding toward her. Elias G was lost for words, emotions churning wildly in his eyes. It was as if he had 1,000 words he wanted to say to me. Yet I merely smiled faintly. As for your marital affairs, I will not interfere as your professor. With those casual, dismissive words, I shut down all possibility of further conversation. All color drained from Elias G's face. I picked up my books and walked past him. Slap! A sharp sound rang out behind me. Annoyed by Elias G's attempt to complain to me, Eleanor Sue slapped him again. Another handprint bloomed on his other cheek. Curious classmates craned their necks to watch. I glanced back as well, my gaze cold and disdainful as it fell upon Elias G. This is the path you chose for yourself. Where is your so-called dignity now? Stung by the coldness in my eyes, Elias G turned his face away. He mumbled an apology to Eleanor Sue. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. Satisfied, Eleanor Sue walked away like a victorious general, taking her captured slave along with her. Back in my office, I thought about how aggrieved and resentful Elias G had looked today. Was he pitiful? I only felt a sense of satisfaction and could not help letting out a soft laugh in the empty office. Professor, do you find it amusing that I have to live as a kept fiancé? That I deserve all this? I had no idea when Elias G had arrived. He did not even bother knocking on the door. He strode straight into my office and flew into a fit of rage for no reason. Professor Sung, do you find it funny watching me get beaten? Why won't you help me? What reason could you possibly have for refusing to save me? Or do you think someone like me, Elias G, is born lowly and deserves to have my dignity trampled on by others? He grabbed my wrist tightly, leaving dark purple bruises on my skin. Just like he had always been. He had none of the stature of a real man, yet all the bad temper of one. I had been foolish to pretend we were strangers. A leech like him, a stubborn cancer in my life. From the very day we reunited, I should have uprooted him completely. I let out a faint chuckle. I lifted my eyes to meet Elias G's gaze directly. You dare to demand dignity from me, Someone who is essentially a murderer? Don't you remember? At the back gate of the orphanage you killed the real daughter of the Sioux family. Elias G. released my wrist in shock. He stumbled backward, eyes wide with disbelief as he stared at me. So, it really is you, Mabel Sue. You didn't die. Are you here to take revenge on me? In the next instant he frantically grabbed my hand again. No, you still love me. Why else would you say all this? You must still have feelings for me. Save me. Help me leave Eleanor Sue. I pulled my hand away forcefully. I picked up a folded handkerchief beside me, wiped my hands clean, and tossed it straight into the trash can. You're disgusted by me. Think I'm dirty? I shot him a cold glance. Isn't it obvious, Elias? Gee, what exactly do you think you are? I grabbed the hem of his clothes and dragged him over to the honor wall behind me. Do you need me to read out my achievements for you? I am Celeste Song, the youngest professor at University a PhD in computer science. I receive special national subsidies as a high-level national talent. I am listed among the top 10 outstanding youths in the capital, with an infinitely promising future ahead. What right do you have to demand my help? Do you even deserve it? Elias G's face paled instantly. It was as if his already fragile pride had been trampled under my feet once more. Tears welled up in his eyes as he begged me helplessly. Mabel. Shoo, you know I'm still capable. In our past life, I also became a professor. I'm talented, and I was always considerate toward you. If you help me divorce Eleanor Sue, I swear I will treat you well for the rest of this life. We can support each other just like before and grow old together. Slap. I slapped Elias G hard across the face, turning his head sharply to the side. Still not satisfied, I raised my hand again. Slap. Another blow, splitting the corner of his mouth until it bled. I shook my tingling wrist in disgust. You disgust me. Get out of my office, or I only need one phone call and you will be expelled from school immediately. Elias G stared at me deeply for a long moment. Mabel. Sue, you can reject me if you want, but will you abandon the Sue family too? Your biological parents? With those words left hanging in the air, he turned and walked away. I knew that choosing to expose myself to Elias G meant I had to face the risks that came with it. But in this life I would never choose to wait passively for misfortune to strike. I stood up and headed straight for the female student dormitory. Hello, I'm here to see Eleanor Sue. I was not the only one whose life had been tampered with and stolen. When I sat face to face with Eleanor Sue, it felt as if I had stepped into a dream from another lifetime. She had a straightforward temperament, exactly like her mother. Professor Song, have you come to persuade me to treat Elias G better? I think this is a family matter. If you two truly aren't compatible, he can file for a formal divorce instead of causing such a scene. I smiled gently and cut her off. No, I actually think you've been far too kind to him already. Eleanor Sue looked slightly surprised. She clearly had not expected me to say such a thing. Is it because he offended you earlier? To be honest, I was stunned the first time I saw you. You look exactly like my mother. If I hadn't heard you grew up in the capital, I would have thought you were her biological daughter. It's a pity she passed away. If she were still alive, you two would surely hit it off at first sight. I lifted my gaze. I never expected Eleanor Sue to test me as well. We were both intelligent women, so there was no need for me to beat around the bush. The plum rain season comes around every June. My mother used to suffer from rheumatism in her knees every year at this time. She always needed an extra spoonful of honey added to her medicinal decoction. She had a childish temper and would always complain about how bitter the medicine tasted. She would always say this medicine is the most bitter thing in the world. The water beside Eleanor Sue spilled all over the table in an instant. Tears slowly filled her eyes. She looked at me, her voice trembling uncontrollably. You. I raised my hand to wipe away her tears, my gaze falling to the plum blossom birthmark on her shoulder. This plum blossom mark on your shoulder is identical to your mother's. Nora Zhao. We talked long into the night, sitting side by side sharing our hearts. It was as if fate had forcibly righted the tangled threads of our stolen lives. Early the next morning I took half a day off from school. I headed home to visit Grandpa. Grandpa was playing chess with Old Man Joe. The two terrible chess players were perfectly matched. They took 3 steps forward, and regretted 4 moves back. It was impossible not to laugh watching them. Even so, Grandpa still could not win against Old Man Joe. He was even teased for lacking education, and told to read more books. Grandpa was furious. The moment he saw me walk in, he pushed the chessboard aside shamelessly. "I'm not playing anymore. My girl's home. I'm gonna cook lunch." "Celeste, why are you back on a Wednesday? Are you craving Grandpa's braised pork?" I greeted Old Man Joe first, then pulled Grandpa down to sit beside me. Seeing my hesitant expression, Grandpa knew I had something important to tell him. "Grandpa, do you still remember that small southern town where you found me?" Grandpa immediately understood what I meant. He rubbed his hands awkwardly, forcing a smile to comfort me. "I get it. Is Celeste homesick?" "It's all right. Grandpa is getting old. I might not be able to stay by your side much longer in the years ahead. It's good for you to go back and look for your family. If there are relatives from your hometown, someone will be able to protect you in the future." Tears welled up in Grandpa's eyes as he finished speaking. He stood up abruptly, trying to hide his sorrow by walking toward the kitchen. "Let's not talk about this. I'll cook braised pork for you." Watching his stubborn back, I said nothing. I quietly leaned my face against his back. Tears soaked through his clothes and clung to his shoulders. Grandpa's hand paused mid-chop. He smiled and comforted me softly. "Silly girl, why are you crying? Grandpa only feels sorry for you. When I first picked you up, you were as thin as a cat, too weak to even cry out loud. In the blink of an eye, you've grown into such a fine young lady." I didn't let the old man sink into grief any longer. I told him everything from the start, explaining how I had been swapped at birth. Grandpa listened intently. His emotions flared up quickly and faded just as fast. He had thought I wanted to go back to my hometown to reunite with my biological family. Never did he expect I had come to ask for his help instead. He was half pleased, half furious. The kitchen knife slammed heavily onto the chopping block, leaving a crack in the wood. We've been in the capital for so many years. I have no idea who's still left in that small town. If we want to investigate this matter, we need someone local to help. That's right. I remember old Joe's youngest son lives in Yunnan. I'll go find him right away." The moment he finished speaking, Grandpa grabbed my hand and marched over with a kitchen knife in tow. The sentry at old Joe's gate was thoroughly startled. Old Joe, Celeste's been bullied. Are you going to help or not?" Old Joe was also a hot-tempered man. He snatched an electric baton from the sentry's waist, ready to charge into a fight. "Of course I'll help. Damn it, I'm definitely stepping in. Which reckless brat from the compound did this?" His loud outburst instantly turned the once sorrowful atmosphere into something comical. I hurried to stop him. Together with Grandpa, I explained the whole story clearly. Other things were manageable, yet after so many years had passed, I wasn't sure if any evidence could still be found. Old Joe wasted no time and immediately called Asher Joe down south. "Brother Asher, I'm leaving this matter entirely in your hands." A hearty laugh came from the other end of the line. "It's rare to hear you call me brother." "Don't worry. I'll get this sorted for you for sure." Asher Joe was a man of his word. With his promise, my heart felt completely at ease. I stayed with Grandpa for the rest of the afternoon before heading back to campus. Eleanor Sue had been waiting for me in my office for a while. She stood up and nodded the moment she saw me walk in. Our plan earlier was exactly right. Elias G. really tried to threaten me with the truth. Elias G. was never a good person. Now that I had admitted I was Mabel Sue, he would definitely use this secret to threaten Eleanor Sue and Rhett. Sure enough, Elias G. had confessed everything to Eleanor Sue that morning. Told her how he had swapped us two all those years ago. "Whether you are the Shu family's biological daughter or not, I will always be their son-in-law. As long as we prove you're not related by blood, you'll have no right to control or access the Sue family's assets. I'll be the sole heir as the son-in-law." Elias G. looked utterly triumphant, fully convinced Eleanor Sue could never let go of the Sue family's wealth. He let out a mocking laugh and issued his threat. "Either we get divorced and you give me half the Sue family property, or I'll bury this secret forever." Besides, don't you want to find out who your real birth mother is? Fortunately, Eleanor Sue was no fool. She feigned shock and outrage. Everyone has been dead for years. You can't just claim I'm not their daughter out of nowhere. Elias G. grew even more overconfident, eager to reveal his final trump card. Mrs. Sue paid a huge sum to store her umbilical cord blood when she gave birth all those years ago. You were too young to know, but I do. Hospitals now have a method called DNA testing. A single test will reveal the truth of blood relation. My eyes lit up. This was exactly the opening we needed. I planned to ask Brother Asher to start his investigation with the stored umbilical cord blood. Eleanor Sue then took out 2 contracts, drafted by Elias G. himself, intended to carve up the Sue family's fortune. He gave me until tomorrow night to make up my mind and hand over the money. The college has urged him to pay his tuition for the 3rd time. If he can't pay up soon, he'll be forced to drop out. I nodded thoughtfully. I leaned close to Eleanor Sue and whispered a plan in her ear. She looked up and we shared a knowing smile. The entire next day, Eleanor Sue vanished without a trace. Elias G. had been completely confident of victory, certain Eleanor Sue would sign the contract without hesitation. As time ticked by, he waited for her to come begging for mercy so he could humiliate her properly. Instead, the dorm supervisor arrived at his door pressing for tuition payment, yet Eleanor Sue still hadn't shown up. Left with no other choice, Elias G. pawned all his belongings with the dorm supervisor, shamelessly begging for a 2-hour extension. He then rushed to the girls' dormitory entrance, pleading with other students to call Eleanor Sue down, even asking for her roommate. Eleanor? She left early this morning and hasn't come back yet. Elias G. was dumbfounded. He never expected Eleanor Sue would simply disappear on him. The dorm curfew was at 10:30. If he couldn't pay the tuition by then, he would be evicted along with all his belongings. Everything would be ruined. Elias G. was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. After racking his brains, the only person he could think of to turn to was me. He hurried into my office and sighed in relief upon seeing me there. Lend me 3,000 yuan. I'll pay you back as soon as Eleanor Sue comes back. I ignored him completely and locked my desk drawer. I only earn 700 yuan a month. You ask for 3,000 just like that? What guarantee do you have you can pay me back? Get out. Don't disturb me while I'm writing my research report. Refusing to leave, Elias G. dropped to his knees in desperation. I'm begging you. This money matters more than you know. Whether I can become a professor and change my fate all depends on this one chance. I said nothing, quietly twirling my desk key between my fingers. It jingled loudly with 2 faint crisp clicks mixed in. Elias G. stared greedily at the sound. I swear I'll pay you double the amount later. Still indifferent, I looked at him coldly and humiliated him without mercy. Elias G., didn't you say you'd rather be a murderer all your life just to keep your dignity? Where's that pride now? Kneeling on the ground begging me for 3,000 yuan? Tisk, truly pitiful. The Shu family paid 300 to take you in back then. Now you ask for 3,000 without a second thought. You've priced yourself quite high. Elias G.'s face burned with embarrassment. Yet cornered with no way out, he had no choice but to humble himself before me. I know you harbor resentment toward me. I was wrong for what I did back then, and I apologize. I shouldn't have stolen you away and let Nora Zhao take your place. But look how well you're living now. I heard you were adopted by an old general. Your life is far better than it would have been with the Shu family. You should be thanking me instead. You'd never let Eleanor Sue keep stealing your identity otherwise. His words infuriated me to the point of dizziness. He had no comprehension at all of how vile swapping a newborn baby truly was. In his shallow mind, attaching himself to a wealthier family was nothing more than a lucky gain. I had no patience to waste words with someone like him. I stood up to leave. Kneel as long as you like. I will never lend you this money. Yet I left my desk key lying on the table, glinting like tempting bait on a hook, waiting for the greedy fish to take the bite. Stop, thief! Click! The distinct shutter sound of a film camera rang out behind Elias G. He never imagined Eleanor Sue had been hiding inside the storage room at the back of my office all along. The moment Eleanor Sue shouted, I, who had been lingering by the security office, grabbed a guard and rushed upstairs. Sure enough, Elias G. had pried open my desk drawer. Professor Song, I was testing the photography club's camera in the storage room on your instructions. I never expected to catch Elias G. stealing money red-handed. I even took photos as evidence. Look. Caught in the act, Elias G. stared at us both in shock and disbelief. You two. When did you conspire against me? Eleanor. Sue, have you lost your mind? Aren't you afraid I'll expose the whole truth? I won't get a good ending, but do you think you can gloat freely? Lock me up now, and once I'm released I'll still reveal your identity as a fake young lady to everyone. Eleanor Sue raised an eyebrow, completely unbothered. Do you really think I care? The real Sue family daughter is Professor Song. Give up already, no amount of scheming will ever get you that money. Still struggling in the security guard's grasp, Elias G. stubbornly retorted. You can claim that all you want. Mr. and Mrs. Sue have been dead for years. Where's your proof? I'm the only confirmed son-in-law of the Sue family, their sole rightful heir. I only thought Elias G. had lost his senses completely. I tilted my head, innocent yet ruthless, as I asked him. Didn't you say DNA testing can prove everything? The umbilical cord blood idea was all yours to begin with. Elias G. snapped his head up to look at me, then glared at Eleanor Sue. Eleanor Sue, you? Crazy. Why did you tell her everything? The Sue family is filthy rich, and you're willing to give it all up for nothing. Celeste Song already lives a privileged life, yet you still rush to hand her the family fortune. You're an idiot. A fool. I've endured you for years, and this is how you repay me. Unexpectedly, Eleanor Sue gave Elias G. an eerie smile. You endured me all these years? I've endured you just as long. Do you really think Mr. and Mrs. Sue were fools? Couldn't they tell their own daughter didn't look like them? What's more, my birth mother was their neighbor. If it weren't for the fact that you were older and a man, able to hold off those greedy distant relatives of the Sue family, plus Mr. and Mrs. Sue urging me to bide my time, I would have gotten rid of you long ago. Elias G. froze in place. Realization slowly dawned on him as he stared at Eleanor Sue. I always wondered. You were never like this in our past life. You were cheerful, independent, confident, and understood me perfectly. Why did you grow colder and crueler toward me the older we got after I swapped our lives? You beat me, scolded me, belittled me, and left me living with no dignity or sense of self at all. I wish we had never swapped places in the first place. I regret it so much. I truly regret it. Elias G. never got the chance to speak another word. A group of security guards rushed over, dragged him away, and sent him straight to the police station. It was not until the farce calmed down completely that I turned to look at Eleanor Sue. When I opened my mouth, I found my voice trembling. Do my biological parents already know the truth? I wish they never found out. When I was born, my father was already seriously ill. I was practically my parents' spiritual pillar. I could not bear to imagine the despair my mother would feel upon learning everything. Eleanor Sue pulled me into her arms and patted my back gently. No mother in the world cannot recognize her own child. She suspected Elias G. long ago, but he was still young back then, and there was no solid proof. As she grew older and father passed away, her health gradually declined. She knew Elias G. was scheming and cunning, and that he could guard the family fortune on my behalf while I was still young. But Elias G. is a vicious, untamed hound. Mother said he always needed to be disciplined harshly now and then to keep him in line. I burst into heavier tears, my heart aching until it went numb. I would rather mother live in a beautiful illusion, never knowing the truth, than spend her final days trapped in regret and sorrow. Eleanor Sue stroked my hair and comforted me with a soft smile. You look exactly like mother. If she knew you were alive, she would be overjoyed. Even bitter medicinal soup would taste sweet to her then. We held each other tightly, feeling the steady beat of one another's hearts. I forced a faint smile. Eleanor. No, Nora Zhao. Thank goodness I have you. After Elias G. was detained, good news also came from Asher Joe. The hospital had indeed found the umbilical cord blood stored all those years ago. With DNA verification completed, I could directly charge Elias G. with abandonment and intentional injury. And the crucial evidence? It was his confession when he knelt before me. The two faint crisp sounds hidden beneath the jangling of my desk keys were Eleanor Sue pressing the record button on a tape recorder hidden in the storage room. Elias G. had no room for denial. Convicted of multiple crimes, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. For the rest of his days, the dignity he had craved so badly would be nothing but endless years behind bars, despised by everyone. Asher Joe squeezed my frail shoulder gently and comforted me. Don't worry. I'll make sure everything is arranged for him inside prison. In a forgotten corner of the prison, Elias G. was bullied and beaten by prison bullies, stripped of all dignity, reduced to losing control of his own bodily functions. He would often reminisce about his past life, admired by all. He had a wife, fame, and wealth, yet he was never content. In his second month of imprisonment, he began deluding himself that he was still a professor, and was transferred to a psychiatric ward for custody. In the third month, Elias G. committed suicide. His mind was broken beyond repair, leaving no last words behind. When Asher Joe told me the news, I simply nodded calmly. No emotion stirred within me anymore. I planned to return to the small southern town during winter vacation. After so many years away, it was only right to kneel and pay my respects to my father and mother, burning incense for them properly. Eleanor Sue changed her name back to Nora Zhao. On New Year's Eve that year, we both finally found our way home. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye, and Nora Zhao graduated. She gave all the Chu family assets to me and set off to carve her own path in the world. She signed a job offer with an overseas company, saying she wanted to gain work experience. She planned to earn enough money one day and start her own foreign trade company. At my wedding to Asher Joe, Grandpa walked me down the aisle as my family, and Nora Zhao stood by my side as my bridesmaid. They smiled through their tears, sending me off into marriage. As the reception drew to an end, Nora Zhao pulled me aside to whisper privately, Asher, Joe is a reliable man. But even if you didn't have him by your side, I know you now have the courage and strength to face life all on your own. Send me a fax or give me a call if you ever need anything. Plane tickets are easy to buy now. No matter how far apart we are, I'll fly back to see you. I hated to part with her. I personally accompanied her to board the plane. I'll guard the Shu family legacy for you. Take good care of yourself. I've heard my birth mother, Widow Zhao, was a famous businesswoman for miles around. I can't bring shame on her. I'm going to build my own fortune with my own 2 hands. We hugged tightly, neither willing to say goodbye. Xiao Song, next time we meet, remember to call me Boss Zhao. Then you'll have to call me Engineer Zhao. She wiped away her tears, turned around, waved lightly, and walked away with unrestrained grace. In this life, neither of us will ever have any regrets left unfulfilled. This story profoundly warns us. Kindness needs sharp edges. Dedication should not make us lose ourselves. And true dignity is built through self-reliance. In her previous life, the heroine devoted everything to support her child. Raised fiancé only to be resented and trampled by him. After rebirth, the male protagonist, for illusory dignity, swapped their identities and abandoned her in despair. Adopted by an old general, the heroine became a top professor through self-reliance. Facing the male protagonist's humble begging, she stayed sober and resolute, unbound by the past. Obsessed with false dignity, the male protagonist calculated selfishly by all means, and ended up insane and committed suicide. It teaches us that what we get by clinging to others or scheming is never dignity. Blind dedication will only be let down. Only by being independent, sober, sticking to the bottom line, and achieving success through our own efforts can we control our lives. Good and evil will eventually be rewarded.